Hear you chanting, and you're now live on YouTube.
Okay. Should I start?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All righty. Hare Krishna Prabhus. It is the monsoon in Arizona, and I think it's the monsoon in South India too. So we're both getting rain, merciful rain, Krishna fertilizing everything. And may he fertilize this lesson. To love is to cooperate. More than a farewell request, Srila Prabhupada's desire that his followers cooperate is a perennial call to action. By May 1977, Srila Prabhupada's health had been declining for months. It was time to return to Vrindavan, India, his quote, home, as he called it, to recover or to depart. When his secretary suggested he make a will, Prabhupada agreed. For 7 years, Srila Prabhupada had been training ACBSP to manage the society after his departure. To help them feel the gravity of their responsibility, Prabhupada requested they all come to Vrindavan to witness the will. Quote, because they love you, said his secretary, I'm sure they will all want to come and be with you. Unquote. Prabhupada's reply was grave. Quote, your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I am gone. Unquote. Notwithstanding Prabhupada's request, cooperation can be elusive in our age of quarrel. To see why, as well as what we can do to foster cooperation, let's sample reveal a simple yet challenging dialectic. I'm using the word dialectic in the Socratic sense of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So I call this a Prabhupada dialectic, and Prabhupada's thesis is that we cooperate. Despite Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's order that his leading disciples, quote, work conjointly, that's how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta put it on the eve of his departure. Work conjointly, quote, and quote, without any non-cooperation, fragmented the Gaudiya mission and later disqualified most of them from helping Prabhupada revive it in the West. Determined that non-cooperation not similarly spoil ISKCON, Prabhupada often defined and tested his disciples' devotion in terms of their willingness to work together. Quote, when you do something in cooperation with the Lord, that is called bhakti, unquote. And here's another one, quote, the test of our actual dedication and sincerity to serve the spiritual master will be in this mutual cooperative spirit to push on this movement and not make factions and deviate, unquote. The day he signed his will, Prabhupada echoed his previous observation about cooperation. Quote, "Your love for me will be tested by how, after my departure, you maintain this institution. We have glamour and people are feeling our weight. This should be maintained." Unquote. So that's Prabhupada's thesis in the dialectic, cooperate. Now the antithesis, the opposite, the counterpoint is, as Prabhupada put it, don't expect utopia. You know, where everybody's always smiling and everybody gets along, and so don't expect that. A couple of years after Prabhupada had formed the GBC, one of its members wrote to complain that impersonal dealings were dividing his colleagues. Prabhupada disagreed. Quote, "It is not so much that there may be some fault in our God brothers and God sisters, or because there may be some mismanagement or lack of cooperation, that this is due to being impersonalists. No, it is the nature of the living condition to always have some fault." Unquote. So this may astonish us. Fault, even in spiritual life? There is some fault and envy, but it is not the same as material fault or material envy. It is transcendental because it is all based on Krishna. Sometimes when one devotee would serve Krishna, "Oh, she has done so nicely. Now, let me do better for pleasing Krishna." So Prabhupada says that is envy, but it is transcendental without malice. Malice is like hatred, ill will. Envy without malice. How wonderful. Prabhupada continues. So we shall not expect that anywhere there is any utopia. Rather, that is impersonalism. People should not expect that even in the Krishna consciousness society, there will be utopia. Because devotees are persons, therefore there will always be some lacking, but the difference, despite everything they may do, their topmost intention is to serve Krishna. Just an aside here. Acharya Prabhu, I do keep getting a notice that my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me okay so far?
Yes, Prabhu, we are able to hear you. It's just sometimes in between 5 seconds we miss. But it's
Okay.
we are able to get the picture.
Okay. Like a martial arts master using an opponent's negative energy to his advantage, Prabhupada then finished his point, challenging his disciple to see the positive. Quote, "The devotees of Krishna are the most exalted persons on this planet. Better than kings, all of them. So we should always remember that, and like the bumblebee, always look for the nectar or the best qualities of a person. Not like the utopians, who are like the flies, who always go to the open sores or find the faults in a person. And because they cannot find any utopia, or because they cannot find anyone without faults, they want to become void, merge, nothing. They think that is utopia, to become void of personality. So, if there are sometimes slight disagreements between devotees, it is not due to impersonalism, but it's because they're taken very seriously, unquote. So that's an astonishing letter, a famous letter Prabhupada wrote to my godbrother Acharya in February 1972, because sometimes the disagreements seem to be ferocious. But Prabhupada says, because everyone's in differences, because we're individuals. So Prabhupada says, such disagreements and still be friends and devotees. Now, if Prabhupada's thesis is to cooperate and his antithesis his resolution. Synthesis. Find unity in diversity. Prabhupada's famous phrase. That's his synthesis. When another GBC man wrote to inform Prabhupada of more dissension in the ranks, Prabhupada's response was philosophical and proactive. Quote, but for this Krishna consciousness movement, its success will depend on agreement, even though there are varieties of engagements. In the material world, there are varieties, but there is no agreement. In the spiritual world, there are varieties, but there is agreement. Unquote. Different individuals have different harmonizes, quote, the varieties of engagements is their shared purpose to please Lord Krishna. And Prabhupada finishes the letter famously, quote, the materialists cannot come into agreement with varieties, but if we keep Krishna in the center, then there will be agreement in varieties. This is called unity in diversity, unquote. To illustrate, Prabhupada would sometimes give the example of concentric circles. No matter how many circles we draw, if they all share the same center, they never clash. In the same way, even when differences arise, if pleasing Krishna is our shared intention, we'll at least be able to, quote, agree to disagree, unquote, and continue working cooperatively to serve the Lord. Prabhupada knew this would be an ongoing challenge. And so here's the famous request Prabhupada made at the end of the letter. Quote, I am therefore suggesting that all our men meet in Mayapur every year during the birth anniversary of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. With all GBC and senior men present, we should discuss how to make unity in diversity. But if we fight on account of diversity, then it is simply the material platform. Please try to maintain the philosophy of unity in diversity. That will make our movement successful, unquote. So there it is. It's a perennial call to action, mandate. Prabhupada said every time you gather in Mayapur, so many different issues may come up, but they all turn on this mandate. They'll be resolved if we follow this mandate of how to make unity in diversity. Tribute, the documentary to Bhakti True Maharaj's life came out, and that was a big That was a big theme around Maharaja's life. I think it was Anuttama Prabhu, ISKCON's global communications minister, said he noticed whenever it got very tense at GBC meetings, Bhakti True Maharaj would like call a timeout without saying timeout. He would just say, okay, we have a lot of different opinions here. Now, despite all the different opinions, let's think, how would Prabhupada want us to come together and resolve this cooperatively, amicably? That was always Maharaja's mood. Vocation. Now, the next section I call unity in principle, diversity in application. So the whole rest of the lesson is all about how to find unity and diversity, which is achieving unity and diversity is the key to cooperation, which is Prabhupada's measure of our love for him. We may be, if we trust our mutual intentions to please Guru and Krishna, we'll be able to work together to identify timeless, universal principles whose applications will vary according to, quote, time, candidate, and country, unquote. Prabhupada explains. Just excuse me I just have to close the window. Loud. Actually, the devotees are greeting the deities here, but then there's going to be a rip-roaring. Okay, so Prabhupada explains about this time, country, candidate. Okay, quote. The teacher, Acharya, has to consider time. Prabhupada's purport to Madhya cease. Teacher, Acharya, has to consider time, candidate, and country. What is possible in one country may not be possible in another. The Acharya's duty is to accept the essence of devotional service. It is not necessary that the rules and as those in Europe, America, and other Western countries. We should not follow regulative principles without an effect, nor should we fail to accept the regulative principles. What is required is a special technique according to country, time, and candidate, unquote. That's one of my favorite passages. Of course, even if the Acharya's, quote, special technique proves effective for spreading Krishna consciousness, advanced devotees may still disagree about its application. So Prabhupada's special technique was how he considered the relative circumstances of country, time, and candidate. But still, devotees may and do disagree about how to apply that special technique. For example, while receiving a massage from his assistant one day, Prabhupada advised me that in India, but I have become successful because I made this adjustment. unquote.
Hare Krishna.
Told him to ask.
Hare Krishna,
Quote.
Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhuji, the voice is breaking too much in the last 4 or 5 minutes. Is something possible?
I mean, it's breaking so much that you don't
Yeah.
know what I was saying.
Yeah, we are losing
boy.
the connection.
Well, let me try the phone. Why don't we try the phone without the visual?
Yeah, we can try that.
Okay, let me go to the. Should we just disconnect from the laptop?
No, once you connect to the phone, then you disconnect from the
Okay. All right. So let me get ready for that. Okay. Achuti, you still there?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, well, all right. I'm at the point now where I'm not gonna enable the video, but I click on join audio and I can never do it. Let's see what happens.
What's the name with which you have joined?
Suresvara Das.
Okay.
Okay. I just click on it, nothing happens. There's a little cartoon box above join audio.
Yeah.
It says Wi-Fi or cellular data. And then I click on the icon below that and then.
Yeah, last you left it like that for around 4 or 5 minutes and then it could connect. I noticed. It takes some time to connect, I feel.
Oh, okay. Should I?
Yeah.
No.
I think I think we can, I'll get a signal when that gets connected. I'll inform you. Until that time, we can manage with the laptop.
Okay. All right. I don't know, it would be any better. But anyway, it's a different device. Who knows? Okay. So you say it's been rocky for the last 5 minutes. Should I start this section again called Unity in Principle, Diversity and Application?
Yes, Prabhu, that would be very nice.
Tactic that Prabhupada wanted unity and diversity. So now how to do that? So the section is called Unity in Principle, Diversity and Application. Since achieving unity and diversity is the key to cooperation, Prabhupada's measure of our love for him. However diverse we may be, if we trust our mutual intentions to please Guru and Krishna, we'll be able to work together to identify timeless, universal principles whose applications will vary according to, quote, time, candidate, and country, unquote. Prabhupada explains. So that time, candidate, and country. Prabhupada CC Madhya 23-105 purport. Quote, the teacher, Acharya, has to consider time, candidate, and country. What is possible in one country may not be possible in another. The Acharya's duty is to accept the essence of devotional service. It is not necessary to be exactly the same as those We should not follow regulative principles without an effect, nor should we fail to accept the regulative principles. What is required is a special technique according to country, time, and candidate, unquote. And then I say, for spreading Krishna consciousness. The application of that. Massage from his assistant one day, Prabhupada remarked, my godbrothers criticize me that I have allowed women to live in our temples. This is not done in India, but I have become successful because I made this adjustment, unquote. An adjustment and changing a principle. As his assistant continued to rub his body. Finally, he opened his eyes and responded, quote, that requires a little intelligence and a lot of heart. In his commentary to Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 7, text 37, Prabhupada describes the compassionate intent of such intelligence. Quote, so this, a couple of years after that incident with Shruti Kirti and Prabhupada and the massage, directly answered the question, more actually answered the criticism of those godbrothers who didn't like it that he was allowing men and women to serve together in the same centers. And Prabhupada writes in Adi Leela, chapter 7, text 37, quote, an Acharya should devise a means by which people may somehow or other come to Krishna consciousness. First, they should become Krishna conscious, and all the prescribed rules and regulations may later gradually be introduced. For example, since boys and girls in the Western countries freely intermingle, special concessions bring them to Krishna consciousness. The Acharya must devise a means to bring them to devotional service, quote, unquote. Now for Prabhupada, bringing someone to devotional service was the highest principle, requiring bold applications for changing times. For instance, in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Gaudiya mission, many devotees used to chant 64 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra on their beads. Despite Prabhupada suggesting fewer rounds to his first followers, 32, then 25, they still looked perplexed. That would take hours. He then declared 16 rounds daily, the rock bottom minimum for his initiated disciples. When one of those early initiates later asked Prabhupada why he had asked them to chant so many rounds, then reduce the number, Prabhupada replied that he was, quote, experimenting to see what the devotees could do. To determine a principle's practical application, Prabhupada would often try something out and then, quote, judge by there's a hint of how to find unity and diversity. See what the practical application of the principle is. Here's another hint of how to do that. I call it humility helps. At one point, while instructing Sanatana Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped to marvel at his humble disciple. Quote, "Since you possess Lord Krishna's potency, you certainly know these things. However, it is the nature of a sadhu to inquire. Although he knows these things, the sadhu inquires for the sake of strictness." Unquote. Now, Prabhupada wrote no commentary to this text, but Prabhupada said, quote, "A sadhu, a saintly person, although he knows everything, still he remains very humble and tries to is it right? Is it not right? He knows it is all right, but still he waits for the higher authority to confirm it." Unquote. Strict in remembering his absolute smallness, strict and never presuming he knows everything. The humble devotee is always glad to hear deeper realizations from sincere devotees whom he regards as his Prabhus or masters, because he trusts the devotee's intentions. They trust his. Even if they sometimes disagree. In the Mahabharata, the model of the humble hero is King Yudhisthira, and the arrogant fool, King Duryodhana. When they were adolescents, their martial arts guru, Acharya, gave them each an assignment to test their character. Someone less than you, and to Duryodhana, bring me someone more than you. Even as the assignments were spoken, Duryodhana's mind was complaining. Why did Yudhisthira receive the easy task? How will I ever find anyone greater than me? Later that day, Duryodhana fulfilled his own prophecy by returning to his master alone. "I'm sorry, Guru Maharaj. I could not find anyone greater," but kept silent. Twilight came, and still no Yudhisthira. Finally, at dusk, he returned, alone and disappointed. "I'm sorry, Guru Maharaj. I looked high and low. Finally, I saw a man with some grain on a Kadashi. I thought he was going to eat it, but then he fed it to his animal. So I gave up. How will I ever find anyone less than me?" Drona smiled, as we might too. But am I more like Yudhisthira or Duryodhana? Sanatan or understanding the arrogance of Duryodhana and embrace the humility of Yudhisthira? Genuine humility enables us to appreciate and learn from all devotees and cooperate with them to please Srila Prabhupada, Guru, and Krishna. So now the next section is the last section, so please be thinking about questions and comments you can offer at the end. Prabhupada. In 1976, in the holy land of Sridham Mayapur, along the Ganges blue expanse. Dozens of young Americans crowded into Srila Prabhupada's room at ISKCON's International to profusely distribute his books for the benefit of suffering humanity. Quote, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is God himself, Krishna himself. He felt alone, unable to do this task. He felt, so this is the position. Otherwise, alone, what could I do? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself wanted our cooperation. He is God, Krishna, and nobody should think that I have got so great ability I can do. No, it is simply by cooperation we can do very big thing. United we stand, divided we fall. Sankirtan. Sankirtan means many combined together, chanting. That is Sankirtan. Otherwise, Kirtan. Sankirtan means many, many combined together. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. So that's the last word I gave. And now I'll be very happy to hear your questions and comments. I hope the sound was unbroken. Chucha Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. Sorry, Prabhuji, today it's been really a little rocky. So we would ask the questions now, if anybody has.
Yeah, but I'm wondering how the sound was for the last part.
Same as before, Prabhuji.
Oh my gosh. But why didn't we switch over to the phone?
It didn't connect. The phone is still like that.
All right, so let me, all right, so you may have a lot of questions because you didn't even hear.
Yeah, and I'm afraid the questions which we may have maybe because of we may not have heard fully.
Yeah, but let me just make one. Here, it also affects our internet. I don't know why.
We couldn't hear what you said, Prabhu, just now.
Because the rain is an atmospheric thing, and we're going.
Yeah, it must be because of the rains.
Maybe that affects it.
Yeah. So anyways, devotees, we request you to kindly put your questions in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and you can get yourself unmuted to ask a question to Prabhuji.
Okay, so I'll mute myself?
No. I'm asking the devotees that will unmute them.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, I forgot to ask you to press the record button. Did you record this?
Yes, it's being recorded.
Okay. Good.
Last time we just missed it. So devotees can put your question. In the meantime, I have a question. Prabhuji, you mentioned velocity in unity in diversity. So we understand what is unity in diversity, but what does velocity in unity in diversity means? You mentioned Prabhupada told everybody to come to Mayapur once in a year on Gaur Purnima, discuss and maintain the velocity in unity in diversity. So that's my question. What is
velocity? I don't know. That's not the word I use, but let's see what actually
maybe said. Because of the problem, I couldn't hear properly.
Yeah. Okay. Maintain. Let me see. Okay, that was in the letter. Yeah. So let's go back and look at the letter. I think philosophy is
Philosophy in the unity
Yeah.
and diversity. Okay.
Yeah, let me look at it. I think that was the word. Yeah, how to make, okay. Please try to maintain the philosophy, right?
Yeah.
That should be our philosophy, that we can be united, but also be diverse. And that's only possible when we trust each other, that our intentions are to please Guru and Krishna, not anything else. You know, what causes the worst divisions in our society is when people begin to suspect ill intentions. You know, that suspect that people, the reason they don't agree with me is because they're insincere. It's because they're really in the Hare Krishna movement for power or money or prestige or adoration. So when, you know, we should be able to disagree, but when the disagreements get, as we say, ad hominem, when we start to criticize others' character, then it just makes it terrible. So we should at least trust each other's intentions. And if we trust that we're all really trying to please and serve Prabhupada, Guru, and Krishna, then even when we disagree, we can agree to disagree, and we can still, you know, argue and stuff, but then we'll go forward and still be able to work together. But if we suspect that somebody's actually evil, they're ill-intended, then that kills the whole thing. So that's why Prabhupada told Acharya Rishi in that, because everybody's intention is to serve Krishna, just like those devotees in the spiritual world. Somebody was pleasing Krishna, and then somebody else was jealous, but then there happens when people get jealous in the material world, they try to kill their rival, but it becomes, there's an ever increasing upward spiral of pleasing Krishna, and then competing to please Krishna, and then Krishna being pleased, and then it's down into violence and chaos, and that's the material diversity. Good question. Yeah, philosophy. It's the philosophy of unity and diversity. And that's the philosophy of the absolute truth, that everything is one and yet different. So we're all one in our desire to please Guru and Krishna, but we can go about it in different ways according to our different. Classic example nowadays is the hot button issue. One of them is Vaishnavi Diksha Gurus. So this didn't even come up in India in Prabhupada's time because of the culture, very patriarchal culture. But it came up in the West, and when Prabhupada was asked point blank, Prabhupada would say, "Why not? If she's qualified." Prabhupada was asked, "Can she be a temple president? Can she a GBC? Can she be a guru? Why not if she's qualified?" And the principle Prabhupada was standing on there was Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Shudra Keni Noi. Yea, learned, renounced, or even by birth exhibiting, Shudra qualities. If you know the art and science of serving Krishna, Yea Krishna Tattva Veta, say Guru Hoy. You can be a guru. It has nothing to do with birth. It has everything to do with Vaishnav qualifications. So if someone is surrendered, and if they know Shastra and can inspire people, Prabhupada said we need millions of gurus. And so it may be because of cultural considerations that a place like India we feel stymied and stifled and blocked. So it can be, this Vaishnava Diksha Guru thing, even though the principle is clear that it's all about qualification, not gender or not nationality or arabdha karma, manifest karma. It's not about that. It's about personal qualification. But still, that principle can be applied diversely according to, Prabhupada said, time, country, candidate. So maybe some countries. Okay. Any questions on the chat?
Yes, Prabhuji. There are 2 questions in the chat. Very beautiful presentation on unity and cooperation. Sometimes the association of devotees is underestimated. Kindly suggest how can I improve my relationship with devotees? That's the question.
Okay, you after the word suggest, you said kindly suggest, and then it was blank. I didn't hear what you said.
Okay. Kindly suggest how can I improve my relationship with the devotees so that I can cooperate better.
Okay, that really broke up again. Kindly
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, am I audible?
Yeah, but it's really breaking up a lot. Kindly suggest how I can improve what?
My relationship with the devotees so that I can cooperate better.
Well, Vaishnav Seva. It's a very practical thing. Ways and means to serve the Vaishnavas. And that breaks down our mental attitudes. Sometimes we have these attitudes from our past because our gunas don't always, go together. So especially the devotees that we may have a hard time relating to, or we can look for ways and means to serve them, to break down that false ego attitudes. That's what I find very effective. Because the mind is always complaining and criticizing and looking for ways to. That's when the mind's an enemy. So we have to make the mind a friend by controlling it with our intelligence and looking for the ways and means to serve the Vaishnavas. And that, again, on that Bhakti Charu Maharaj documentary tribute, Maharaj was even saying that. Somebody asked him in an interview, what is his main joy? Something like that. And he said, I just love to find ways to serve the devotees. It's so, and he was so, and his heart was just overflowing when he said it. His eyes were sparkling, and it just reminded me of how it was in his presence. That was his. He was always trying to serve whoever he was speaking with, or whatever group he was talking to, or yeah, it was servant and not trying to put himself first or hog the spotlight. So, yeah, just we have to look for ways and means to serve the devotees. As Prabhupada told us, I only asked my Guru Maharaj one question: how can I serve you? the perfect question, right? And then he said his Guru Maharaj would say to him when he would see him, Dasosmi, I am your servant. That's how he would present himself. So he perfectly And that's a very sweet way to live. Serve you. There's a competition of service. It's very sweet. Not a competition of how I can be better than you, or Lord, give up that inner Duryodhana and through there on the audio.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any more?
Yes, Prabhuji, we have one more question. Please tell us, what did Srila Prabhupada instruct about staying safe from offending Vaishnavas? Yeah, basically the question is, I do not
Looking up again, Prabhu, but it sounded like the question is, please tell us how Prabhupada said we can avoid offending Vaishnavas?
Yes. And it has also been mentioned that we don't fully know Vaishnava etiquette, so we are at disadvantage like that. So please tell us how to avoid Vaishnava Prad.
Well, all I heard there is we don't fully know Vaishnava etiquette.
Yeah, we do not know fully the Vaishnava etiquette. So we are at a disadvantage because of that. In such a situation, how we can avoid Vaishnava Prad, especially when we are new to Krishna consciousness?
It's Prabhupada's magic, huh? That you in South India are asking me in the West, from the land of the Malechas and Yavanas, about Vaishnava etiquette. This is something miraculous, right? A chance to observe Prabhupada. And so there is an advantage just by observing him. The Kali Yuga, the only religious principle because in Kali Yuga, the four principles of religion, cleanliness, that Dharma the bull is, his legs have been cut in the first canto. And in America and in India, everywhere, those religious principles are being ignored largely, even by people who call themselves religious. Like when Prabhupada would encounter a Christian, Prabhupada's challenge was always, Jesus Christ came to fulfill the law, the commandments, and one of those commandments is thou shalt not kill. Why are the Christians simply killing? And of course, he's talking about meat eating, animal slaughter. Why don't you follow your own religion? And also in Islam, Islam has been co-opted by these jihadis. So people think that Islam means, radical jihadis, but it's not that at all. If you go to the scriptures, whether it's the Quran or the Bible or Buddhist texts, or the Torah, the Old Testament, the Jewish mercifulness, they disregard those principles because it's the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So Kaviraj Goswami therefore said the only real religious principle, religious principle is in the behavior of the true Vaishnavas. Yeah. So and we're all at a disadvantage, not just people you say you're new, but you're coming from a place that's, traditionally more cultured, certainly, than the West. Although, due to the advance of Kali Yuga and, West consciousness is being bombarded by sinful activities. So, yeah, the only shelter is in the behavior of the Vaishnavas. Certainly Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, he set the standard. As Mahaprabhu said of Haridas Thakur, some people speak, but they don't behave nicely. Some people behave nicely, but they don't know how to speak. So Mahaprabhu praised Haridas Thakur, you do both. About that, that's the only religious principle, is the behavior of the true Vaishnavas. So certainly that was also visible in the behavior and the speech of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Or I'm certain, I know you know devotees who speak nicely and behave nicely. So we have to associate with those kinds of devotees to become like that. I've mentioned this to you before. As we sangat sanjayate kama. Sangha, so we come. As we associate, so we desire. We're known by the company we keep. By with whom we associate with. That's why there's a saying, a person is known by the company he keeps. If you want to know me, look at my friends. Who do I hang out with? Right? So when Rupa Goswami says sadhu sangha as one of the 5 limbs of bhakti, he really meant, if you look into that principle in Bhakti Rasamrita, who are pure and advanced and can really help us grow. Not people who are going to keep us on the same level, which is not bad, but still we kind of like the way it is in the material world. Like when a rocket is trying to escape the Earth's gravity and go up into space, it's either going up and up and up, or it's being overcome by the gravity. So how to learn that etiquette? Well, we just have to, first of all, recognize it in others. And try to be like them. We're going to be like whoever we associate with. Yeah. And that association, can happen in person. That's the best, of course. Face to face, eye to eye. But we can also associate by reading their words or seeing them on a video. Something that's going to help us uncover that divine nature, which is in all of us. It's not that we don't have it. It just has to be uncovered, inspired. Okay, good question. Very similar to the other one. Was the audio coming through there, Achyuta Prabhu?
Yeah, on and off, Prabhuji, but we are able to get the gist of it.
Okay.
To catch around 80% of what you say.
Oh boy.
The next question, Prabhu. False ego leads to most of the disagreements and makes us doubt the intentions of others. How to get rid of this false ego and remain a fool in front of the spiritual masters?
I don't know any other answer than the one I just gave. I mean, the only way to get rid of false ego is to associate with people who have allowed their real ego to come out, their servant ego. False ego means I want to lord it. I want to be the master. So get rid of the false ego by it's the same answer. It's all about association. Prabhupada always told us Krishna consciousness is 90% association. So the false ego always tends to want to gravitate toward people who make the false ego comfortable, who don't ask us to grow, who aren't demanding. That's the false ego. But if we're really eager, if we have that lolium, that spiritual greed, then we'll want to grow, and we won't be afraid of being in the company of people who are more advanced. We're not afraid of giving up our attachment to trying to enjoy matter. We'll be hankering for the association of people who are really enjoying serving. Yeah. Okay, it's the same question, but I guess that's our problem. Therefore, the same question asked in different ways, right? Any more?
Yes, Prabhuji. I have a question. Regarding unity in diversity, I don't know if the question itself is right. Proper subordination and surrender, will it solve the problems which come due to diversity? If somebody is really okay to follow whatever the spiritual masters are saying, irrespective of what they think and what they want to do, is subordination and submission a solution to the problems which come due to diversity?
Well, I mean, that is kind of like the last level of persuasion, right? So just accepting it because it's my Guru Maharaj is forcing me. But better we accept by understanding. I mean, unity and diversity, it's too. That we have a commonality, but also we have differences. You know, back to this hot button issue of Vaishnavi Diksha Guru. How will, you know, if we just go to the extremes, take an extreme Westerner who says it should all just be very diverse. You know, that's the classic liberal kind of extreme position. Everything is diverse. There's no and that's chaos, right? That's chaos. Or yeah, all the ladies, and they've been around for so many years, and so just let them do it. No oversight, no qualification. Yeah, go ahead.
Since the time you started the Vaishnavi Diksha Guru issue, we are not able to hear you. Can you repeat again once more?
All right. Okay. So go back to the example again.
Yes.
Of Vaishnavi Diksha Guru. So if we just go to extreme positions, like the ultra modernist, will say, men and women are all the same, and therefore women should just be allowed to initiate just like men, and we're all equal. So that's not right, because when Prabhupada was asked if ladies could initiate, he said, why not if she's qualified? There is a qualification. Ye Krishna Tattva Veta. Say Guru, you have to know the art and the science of serving Krishna. And then that's the ultra, extreme modern liberal position that everybody should be allowed to, just do it without any restriction, right? But now the other extreme is the ultra traditionalist, who is of a body-based varnashram, say a Vedic varnashram, where we're all very concerned about the bodily designations. No, ladies should never initiate. They just belong in the home. They're just homemakers. They're just wives. They're just mothers. They can never be masters. They're just mothers. So that's also extreme. Because, for example, in my generation, in Prabhupada's time with us, my god sisters, they were all young. And many of them were mothers. And they were busy taking care of the children. But now, the kids are grown up, and they've grown in their Krishna consciousness. And I know many god sisters who are just as learned and just as simple and exemplary as men who were initiating. So why, just because they're in female body, should they be? So in the conversation over Vaishnavi Diksha Guru, it's not helpful for extremists, either extreme modernists or extreme traditionalists, to prevent any resolution of being able to solve, the issue of Vaishnavi Diksha Guru. If we just let extremists yell at each other, that's not the way. That's not what Prabhupada means by cooperation. So, yeah, and extremists get so attached to their position that they become irrational, because you begin to when you get in an extreme mindset, when your mood becomes extreme, you think, if these people were sincere, they would agree with me, because I'm a rational person and everybody should see things the way I see it. Now that's unity without diversity, right? But that's how the extreme mind thinks. These people can't be sincere, because I've been reading Prabhupada's books, I've been serving Prabhupada, I've been hearing his audio, and this is the way I hear him. And if you don't agree with the way I'm hearing him, there must be something wrong with you. That's the wrong way to approach unity and diversity. What we really have to do is sit down, hear each other's concerns, find our common ground, and build on that common ground, and carve out a way, in this particular issue, for example, that we can trust each other's intentions and live with a solution that we might not even agree still with the other party. We can agree to disagree, but we can live with their opinion, because we trust that there's from a different perspective. That's all. But it's not going to look the same all over the world. The way that one attitude for the whole world. To have it's and ended it. And everybody in the world, no matter where you are going to have to be able to respect the other's considerations of culture, you know, time, country, candidate, culture, and not worry. There isn't one way here. It's going to have to be, the way is cooperation, but the application is going to have to be very diverse. As I said, in India, maybe, for example, man's side, the man is the leader. Maybe that's the way it's going to have to be for a while. And in the West, where we have, for example, in NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, everyone knows that the person who has kept NATO together for the past 20 years has been a lady leader, Chancellor Angela Merkel from Germany. She's an expert leader, although she's in a lady's body, because she's qualified. I'm giving a relative example. Of course, none of these people hold up to, you know, the Maharaj Yudhishthira, et cetera, et cetera. But just for the sake of the example. So again, there are many God sisters in the West of mine who are more than qualified to initiate and take care of disciples. And it's a kind of violence when they're not allowed to do that. But if we're sensitive, we're not going to impose that on India, which would also disturb too many people, perhaps. Okay, so unity and diversity, that's the whole holy grail. That's the whole quest. That's the whole key for the Hare Krishna movement, to withstand the ravages of time. Otherwise, we'll just fight and fight and fight and split and split and split. And that's what happens all over the world. All these different groups, they just split. Whenever there's a disagreement, they can't find a common center. And then they just split. They make their own faction. That's what we have in Christianity. So many different denominations. And in politics, you know, just like, let's see, right now, in Israel, they just chose a new prime minister. But the coalition government is consisting of people who, but how they're ever going to get anything done, God knows, because they have no other thing in common except hatred for the old prime minister. Yeah. So we have Krishna, and that should be enough for us to trust Krishna's devotees and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, in every town and village, according to the time, the country, the candidate. It's not going to be the same everywhere. It's going to look different according to the different relative considerations. Okay.
I think that's there are no more questions today, Prabhu, after this.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry we broke up so much. I think it's the rain.
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with atmosphere.
Yes.
So next, let me read the preview of next time.
A quick question is coming to my mind. Do I have time to? Do I have time for a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead. We still have some more minutes.
Yeah. Prabhuji, we are going through this Founder Acharya series. We are meditating upon how to keep Srila Prabhupada as the center of our spiritual life and become better Prabhupada Anugas. Around 8 sessions are over. From your experience of a lifetime of Krishna consciousness, how does keeping Srila Prabhupada in the center help us in being united in diversity?
Because that's what Prabhupada did. When to put Prabhupada in the center is not just a slogan. It means to take Prabhupada into our hearts by his Vani, and you see how diversely he spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And so that makes this embrace, that inspires us to embrace his way of doing everything. Diversely, right down to the individuals. Then when he would deal with individuals, he would deal with individuals in a way that was he would apply the principles that he was preaching very strongly from the Vyasasana. He would apply them very personally and variously according to what the individual could do. Personal. So that helps us. Yeah, like Prabhupada did. It's very easy to, and this sort of comes into the next lesson. I'll read the transition here. Transition. Srila Prabhupada. I call the lesson, quote, fictional Prabhupads. So before we can really enter into a deep, authentic, personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada, we have to clear away the misconceptions. And basically, there's 2 kinds of misconceptions that I'll be presenting next week. Impersonal misconceptions and sentimental misconceptions. So perhaps that will help answer your question, Acharya Prabhu, because maybe we're puzzled about how putting Prabhupada in the center can help us unite, because maybe we don't really know the origin of Prabhupada. So let's see how next lesson does in solving that. It's a different kind of lesson. I call it an exorcism. When you exorcise demons, you drive out ghosts and you cast out demons. So this is what we do. We exorcise. We cast out impersonal and sentimental misconceptions about Srila Prabhupada. And so what's left is an authentic vision and feeling for Srila Prabhupada. So let's look at that next time. Okay, thank you for listening. And I hope we have better audio next time. Thank
you very much, Prabhuji. Today's session was very nice, although
this time, huh?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. If you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you, but nothing from the Matajis this time?
Yes, there is one last question which has come from the Matajis. Actually, the first question was from the Matajis.
Oh, okay.
First and last. So thank you very much, Prabhuji. Although there were some glitches in the audio, but we have got the picture and we have made our notes. We'll circulate it. We'll discuss it. Our 1 hour of lecture generates 10 hours of discussion. So then we'll get back if we have any more questions.
Maybe I should, if the audio was very choppy, just like you had a question because you couldn't hear one word I said, philosophical.
Yeah.
Should I send you that? Did you hear me?
No, Prabhu. Can you repeat yourself?
Yeah, since the audio is so choppy, should I send you the script that I was working from for this lesson?
Yes, Prabhu. That would help.
Okay, good. I'll do that right now. Okay.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. I'll see you next week on, let's see, it'll be the 30th, right? No, it'll be the 31st July, Saturday.
Yes, Prabhu.
Same time.
Same time.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Grace
Hari
Suresvara ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.